So I have some, oh, nope, it keeps not wanting to send it. Zoom updates are always fun. Okay. So that's our very sparse at this point notes. I do have some bugs linked in there. Oh, it looks like one got crossed off. I'm guessing it got signed off already. Yep.
Sorry about that.
But
I noticed I'd already done it. I did it. It was there.
that's okay.
Sorry.
I also put a search link there for need sign off no sandbox. So if it's tagged with a no sandbox tag keyword, it'll show up there so that we can get some that are less easy to test in the sandbox than the one we did last week. Because I had not prepped some of these. But so we've got that for the future as well. Does anybody have their dev box up and running today? Or close enough to up and running that they can try bringing it up to be the driver today? That feels like a no.
I could drive if nobody wants to volunteer.
George is in a car seat, so no volunteering from that.
I pictured a baby car seat, and that's probably not accurate.
I also picked that.
Yeah. I'm a poor candidate to drive. I have to wander away to the Aspen Gathering.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, yeah, Brendan.
One second.
Oh yeah, George has to go to the Aspen Gathering also.
I should say I'm excited to go to the Aspen Gathering in half an hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm starting fresh. Wait, that's too much stuff. Can you see my Visual Studio code now?
Yep.
All right, so this is where I have my different repositories, where I have Koha here, and I also have like the manual Koha testing Docker. I also have a folder of where I can put different plugins to try to launch it with plugins. And Aspen also to try it. Sometimes I have got the Aspen to work with the Koha testing Docker, but sometimes it stops working and have to try again with that. But I guess one thing that I learned at the conference in Montreal was if you have inside Koha, I put you can put a directory called shared, and then in that you can put like I have a custom SQL file there, and that will run like when you launch Koha testing Docker. So one thing that I did with that was where, if I can find it, they shared you can do stuff like, I don't know if you can see my screen that's big enough, but you can set some system preferences so that when Koha testing Docker launches, all these system preferences will be set for you ahead of time, which can really help in certain testing situations. So like I was testing something about acquisitions, loading the acquisitions records, and I could copy this. I basically copied this from our production server so that it had the same setup and I could test that out. So that's one thing that's really neat. And you could set up like your user that you like to use as like a test user, a test patron. I haven't really gone very deeply into that, but it's a really cool thing to know. And then the other thing that's neat is if you let me see, we can if you have this plugins directory. Let's see. Oh, it's this part I have to go back and look at exactly how it's set up, but if you have I have this folder called plugins and a folder called repos, and then in here this is like a Git repository that has remotes uh, like this. It has set up remotes of different plugins, and then you can each remote is set up to each branch. I create a branch that tracks the different remotes, so you can change the branch, and then if you start up, like let's try the whichever one. I was using the overdue notices plugin previously. So whichever branch that you're on, then when you launch Koha testing Docker up with the plugins flag, it will automatically install that. So we can try to see how that works.
Cool.
So if I do KTD up, and I think it's like this, plugins, or it's plugins up, one of the two. Yeah. Okay, it's plugins up. Oh, I'm gonna have to share another window somehow to show you. While this is doing its thing, I'm gonna change how I'm sharing. I'm gonna try.
Sounds good. For anyone that is trying to do Aspen testing Docker stuff as well, if you want it to link into your Koha, you have to have Koha testing Docker up first before bringing up ADB, which is I don't know why it's ADB instead of ATD, but then
It's
bring that
dev
up.
box. I think it's for
Oh yeah.
Aspen dev box.
Mm-hmm. And then you also have to set up the single sign-on, or there's something you have to set up to make it bring over the users. It'll bring over the like database right away, but if you want to bring over users so you can like log in with your same koha, you have to set up something that I have written down somewhere. And I will try to find.
Portion of screen. Okay. I think this will work. So I'll be able to switch between them. So So if I go to localhost, and I log in, you can see like this. We can look at the system preference to make sure that or to demonstrate that that was working. Maybe something's still restarting.
Yeah, it hasn't quite finished, it looks like. So it should
All right.
come up and say that it's ready to use. There we go.
All right. So if I search for that system preference now, you can see that that custom SQL populated this, which is can be super handy, and it's a fun way to kind of be able to practice SQL commands that set variables and create tables and whatever you need to instead of just writing like SQL select statements that get data, like when you're doing koha reports, you can kind of mess around with changing the database. And then the other thing was the plugins, right? So if I go to the tools,
That's probably
where's,
not a
oh,
tool
it's not
plugin.
tools. It's, wait a minute, plugin. It's under admin, right?
Admin, yeah.
Plugins. What I did notice is that like it installs it, but then it's not, there's like some kind of error here. So I didn't do the daemon mode, so I have to open a new terminal and then enter into the KTD shell and then restart all. And that finishes installing the plugin for some reason.
Oh, that's interesting that it does that.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think that was like something changed and it used to not do that, but so now the oops, clicked on the wrong thing. Now the plugin is installed properly. And so if you don't get it right the first time, just maybe restart all for that one. So those are two of the things that I learned specifically at the KohaCon that I've started to use a little bit, and it comes in really handy. I don't know if there's anything else that I can demonstrate here. I guess one thing that I've used for instead of KTD shell, you can do KTD DB shell. Oops. Sometimes that'll be in test notes. That this is the MariaDB. Let's see, what can I, like you can do select star from branches or something, maybe. Oops, and end it with a semicolon. So you could, this is not really very interesting, but in some test plans, it might be like do step ABC and then check how many entries are in this table. And you could do something like that from here if you need to. Oh, alternative to, you could do it in Koha reports too, maybe. That's one thing. Trying to think of other things.
One thing I do in shared folder is I put bash aliases and then source it because
Ooh,
I use I have to source it every time. There's probably a way where I could have it not sourced. I have to source it every time, but one sec, I'm bringing mine up now. Just because I've been using a lot of aliases in general, and well, actually, I guess I can look at the file even though I'm not up right now.
Do you, for the shared folder, do you add it to your git ignore or something so that, or
Oh,
does
yeah.
it,
Yeah, I
or
think we had to add it. Nick walked us through it, but I think we added it to our git ignore. Yeah.
So
because yeah,
I did
otherwise
this,
yeah.
and then I later on figured out you can use this. Let me see. Yeah. So I tried one method and then I realized that you can just edit this file. Get info exclude. So let me see. So I put also another one is Nick's handy scripts repository. So I cloned his repository and yeah, I added the shared there so that it doesn't come up as like an untracked file or be annoying when you have to make changes to your repository.
And that handy repository Nick also shared with us at KohaCon, and it's
Yep.
just got some handy scripts for like make a bunch of branches or
These are all scripts here. So let's see.
like
Yeah,
random
I
hole.
use like place random holds. Let's say the test plan says try this with a lot of holds in the system. So that you could do Perl, handy. Do I put the thing there? Handy
Are you?
rand
You're in handy,
hold.
so I don't think you even have to.
Oh, I'm in handy. Yeah, you're right. Rand hold.
Nick put the link to Nick's repo in the chat.
So you could, I guess you could see that if you go to the DB shell and then select, let's just do a count. Reserves. So it added 188 holds in a couple of seconds. So that's pretty neat. And I think it will, like, similarly, I've used the random issues and random holds mostly, or many patrons, I guess. I think I used one of those.
Yeah. And it's nice too because it does like if you look at the script, it has a note in there that it's a 50-50 chance to be item level or record level holds. So it'll get a variety, in theory, of holds. And that's really helpful. And I think that mark.txt is just a mark file that can be used. I'm trying to
And the
remember.
other thing that's pretty handy about this repository is like their little bite-size scripts. So it's a lot easier to kind of jump into this like 40 lines of Perl instead of like some of the Koha Perl files are hundreds or thousands of lines long.
Yeah.
So I think like looking through these small bite-sized bits is a helpful way to learn a bit of that too. So I've kind of used that to like figure out how these different libraries and what you can do with those libraries, calling those functions, like it's really handy. So thank you, Nick.
And just to explain that a little bit, where it says like use koha : patrons, that's the like patron object in the koha. Like if you go to the koha code and it's koha folder patrons, to see yeah,
It's like
it's the capital K koha, I think. Yeah. And I think, yeah, patrons.
patron.pm, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually in the it's just at the
Oh, yeah.
base level. These ones. So it's like
This one uses patrons.
it's one of these two. They're related, but I think basically what these files do is they create objects out of the table, out of the something. They create objects from the database, right?
Yes. Lucas is nodding emphatically. Thumbs up. And so, yeah, Koha's, at least the newer things are object-based. I don't really know, the C4 is like the old things, and I'm not sure that those are also, I don't think those are also objects. No. Thank you for your help, Lucas. And so that's if you're like trying to track something down and the file says like, oh, use Koha patrons, then you might want to go look at the Koha patrons file if you can't figure out, you know, what exactly is going on in that file, especially if it's using like Koha patrons and then a function, or like maybe function's not the right thing, but a subroutine that's defined in the, like if you scroll down a little bit, Brendan.
Yeah.
Oh, in the patron.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So like that, it'll map different parts for the specific patron ID mapping. And those are for like all the different tables. But then there's this like sub new patron. And so if it does like calls koha patron : new, it might be caring about this part of the code. That's not necessarily like the best example. But just to add some context. And yeah, the handy, I didn't catch when Leo, Imani, and Lucas joined. Did you guys catch we were talking about the handy scripts?
I caught the back part of that, Nick's handy scripts.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't think Leo or Imani likely did.
Okay. Nick has a neat set of scripts for like making a bunch of holds or making a bunch of patrons, things like that. So you don't have to go in and do it a bunch every time. And okay, I see in the chat that Imani saw the link.
Oops.
So you got in there. Oh yeah, I always forget about that, David. The Koha how-to for new developers. I'll get into it and then forget. But there is like a little built-in Here's like the workflow.
Yeah, this is really good. I recently went over this with Annisha, who's our new member of CLAMS. And I thought it's just really cool that it kind of walks you through the whole process. Starting from like links to the wiki. And then it does this kind of interactive quiz, which is cool. And then we can go to the next part. The important terminology and kind of a rundown of different types of files. Some helpful commands to find the files that you're looking for. And then the whole process of writing a patch and submitting a patch. And it gives you a little exercise to on this bug on Bugzilla is, so Annisha just did this the other day with us somewhere.
And earlier I was talking about that so for the handy scripts, if you set up a shared folder in your Koha folder and add it to your git ignore, then it doesn't get overwritten when you pull and you can access it inside. I have some aliases in there that I use, bash aliases, which I have to source every time, and there's probably a better way to do it, but it works fine for me. And I just have things like LA is ls-a, and like GLO to do a like one line git log if I'm just trying to figure out like what the last few ones were, things like that. And these are things that I was just like also using a lot in some other places that are on my machine, and so then I'm using them in both places, and that's helpful. And also some things that I mistype all the time, like forgetting to put a space, cd ... with no space in between. I just added that as an alias, so when I do that, it still works and I don't have to redo it. Things like that. I guess you could also alias a bunch of the handy scripts so that you can just type like make patrons and have it make all your patrons,
Oh, that would be cool.
now that I'm thinking about that.
I'm afraid to add aliases because I feel like I'll confuse myself.
Yeah, that's fair. That's why mostly it's just things like ls-a into LA, you know, fairly straightforward things. But also it's helpful because then you can type alias is it alias or aliases? I think aliases, and it'll list them for you. And so it's also a nice way to just keep commands that you want to have easy access to, even if you're not using the aliases, because it gives you a nice list of whatever aliases you have. So that can be nice too.
What's that? What's that command?
Aliases, I think.
Aliases like that.
Yeah.
I want
Maybe just alias.
Because I wonder, or you have to be in maybe if there's aliases in KTD, right? Like QA.
Mhm.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah. Which is also helpful because then you can see what the aliases are in KTD.
Yeah.
Do you wanna do one of the bugs off our list? Oh, I'll put that in the chat again because you would not have seen it.
Trying to figure out how to balance my screen sharing
Yeah.
and see what's going on at the same time.
Okay, so I made this Bugzilla link search for need sign off without sandbox because we're trying to um, learn more about doing things on the command line here. So I don't know. We could just start with the one that's on top.
This one?
Unless something really like jumps out to you.
Um, I think I've looked at both of these two recently. So make automatic renewals, cron job quiet if enhanced messaging preferences off. Yeah.
Cool. So we'll need to disable the preference.
One thing that I do, this is kind of a general Windows tip, but if you turn on your clipboard history, it makes doing this kind of thing really easy because you can copy the stuff you need all at once and then paste them later. So like I'll just copy, I need to run this command and I need to run this command again. That's the same command. Oh, this one has verbose. All right. So there, then later on when I go to, so to test first, disable that preference. I can just paste it like. So disabled the preference. Now run this cron job so I can get out of handy. And then to run, I guess it needs to say Perl. And um, just the warning is printed.
Oh, you should do it without verbose.
Oh, that's right.
Which this time looked the same.
Yeah. So is this the warning?
Yeah, I think so, because it says the warning about the enhanced messaging system preference being disabled.
Okay, so then we're gonna apply the patch. Git bz apply. And then restart everything.
And I usually make a separate branch for bugs I'm testing because then I can just change back to the main branch instead of doing like a hard git restart reset.
Yeah.
I think there was a discussion the last meeting, and someone just does everything on. I think it was Lucas. I'm not sure. Did everything on main. I always create a branch as well, and mainly so that if I need to go back to main just to see what it was like before, then I can switch branches again. I don't have to do it very often, but anyway, it's a choice. I guess you can do it both ways. So.
That's a good point. Well, we can continue this one this way, maybe.
Mhm.
'Cause,
So then,
so we restart it all, and then run the same command again. And so the difference was it didn't have this warning.
and then if you run it with verbose, it should have the warning.
So it seemed like it worked.
And if you turn the preference back on,
Uh,
and run it without verbose again. And probably should run it with verbose again, since it shouldn't print there either now. Cool.
So that looked, oops.
Yep.
So that is good. So now sign off will be get SO and the number of patches. So at KohaCon also I learned this thing called TIG, which helps you to count that. So it's just it's just this one patch. But if some of the bugs they have many, it's helpful to be able to count like 1, 2, 3, however many commits. But this one just has the one. Control Z. So I'll do get SO1. I usually do like get log and you can see your sign off line there. That's just to confirm for your own sanity. And then so you've signed off on the patch and then it's reattaching it to the bug. So I'll
Yep.
get the bug number again. Get BZ attach E for edit and then the bug number.
Does the ego?
No, oh, head for the one single patch. And if there's more than one, then it's tilde the number ... But this one is just one.
Is it tilde what's the dot dot? I don't usually do that.
I don't know. I read that somewhere.
Just it.
Maybe you don't need the ... So then this part you have
For
to,
me, it's one of those ones that's always like, you do this when I first started doing it, and then I've always done it. So
I can change the status to signed off and then escape colon to enter command mode, WQ for write, and then exclamation point just because. And then I always go back here and check. I just refresh the bug and see that it was signed off and that it looks like I attached the correct thing.
And then to
And
reset
then,
box.
oh yeah, So yeah, because I'm in main instead of doing a branch, I do git reset hard origin main. And then but the alternative way would be to create a branch before you attach the patch,
Mm.
apply the patch.
What I do as a reset underscore org, so that deletes any of your data or changes you make, so you get it as though KTD has just started up.
Oh, yeah, reset underscore all.
Underscore.
And that this will be interesting because I'm not sure when you do reset all, the difference is it restarts all the services like restart all, but it also resets the database to if you changed any system configuration, or like we added holds. So I'm wondering it's gonna reset. It definitely wipes out all the holds. But is the custom SQL going to run again, or is that only when KTD starts up? I don't actually know.
Let's find out.
Yeah, I think it probably will. It's just like restarting, shutting down KDD and restarting it as though you were, yeah. The only thing I noticed, it doesn't run the zebra index for some reason. So, but anyway.
I think it said something over there.
That's from the MISC for dev tests.
Uh, all right, so the system preference one, we can check. This one. Okay, so it does run the custom SQL if you have that.
Okay, that's good to know.
But we'll know like this should say that there's no holds in the system when you launch KTD, right? Yeah.
Yep. And the custom SQL that he's talking about in the shared folder, he has a custom.sql file that runs when you bring it up, and you can use that to like set certain system preferences. Like by default, KTD sets it to a minimum of 8 character passwords with a strong limit. And so I know that's was one of the examples was updating the system
Yeah.
preference to be shorter and not strong. So it's easy to make, like if you have to test with other permissions, it's easy to make like a super easy other non-koha user that's not a long password.
Yep. And I think you could like if you wanted to preset a certain like let's say you use a certain user all the time to test like being a patron for something, you could I think you could write maybe we can do it here is update we can do it all caps to be uh, borrowers set value equals, let's say, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, where I'm thinking, well, actually, I'm not sure exactly how, where you want to, there's a way to write a SQL statement that will set the password of a borrower, where you need to know the borrower number
Yeah.
set. So it's not value, it's probably set password to 1, 2, 3, 4, where
Borrower
the
number
borrower
equals-
number or barcode or whatever.
You might, I don't know whether it'll work. I think you need, because the passwords are encrypted
Oh,
or hashed or some magical security thing. So I don't know. I think there is a command to do it, but I don't know what it is. So.
gotcha. Well, that's the idea though. You could maybe pre-set up some patrons or other system preferences to be a certain way. I'll try that again another time.
But yeah, those could be pretty helpful for just setting up like if you're either testing the same thing a bunch and don't want to have to be like setting up the same set of things, or if there's like, oh, I always like to use the advanced cataloging editor, so I'm just gonna have it turned on so I don't have to go turn it on every time. Things like that. But yeah, you can do a lot with it. Because it's all just custom SQL statements. So if you're like testing a lot of things with, like, I'm working on the local holds priority groups thing, and so like setting up groups, I should just make custom SQL that'll make a bunch of the groups and set things into the groups for me. So I don't have to
Yeah.
set that up every time I'm working on it.
I also had an idea that I wanted to try to create a file that would kind of get most of our system preferences for like production. So I could maybe inside the shared folder, I could make it a Git repository with branches, and then different branches would have different setups. So you could just switch branch, and then when you restart KTD, it would set up like all the preferences a certain way. And then so I want to test, like, I want to launch KTD with a lot of my production system preferences. I would go into this, and mine's not a Git repository yet, but it's just an idea. You would have like different branches with different custom SQL files. Then you just change branch and restart KTD, and you have a totally different setup.
Yeah. I
But I
like
haven't
that
done
idea.
that yet.
Just wanted to check whether we had any other volunteer wanted to walk through a bug. Some new
Yeah.
people since we started. I don't, if we've got, I don't know whether we've got time or not, Lizzie. That's if
Well,
anyone wants to, but
10 minutes.
it's always different when you do it yourself. What rather than watch everyone else do it.
Yep, it's true.
It's a good thing. It like reinforces everything in your brain.
Yep, and we're trying to like cycle through drivers. Like last time Jason did a couple of bugs for us. And I think you did too. I don't know. Just one? Okay. And Brendan drove this week, and next month we'll try to get someone else. I guess I should do it sometime too. Maybe next time I'll drive. And then we can keep changing it up. So, does everyone, Annisha, you must have KTD set up because you did do that patch.
I do.
Jason, is yours still working? Have you brought it up at all since last month? Cool.
Yeah, I used it today and I updated it and everything. Seems to be working.
Yeah, and I know there's been some talk about moving some of those handy scripts into the QA test tools, or similar things into the QA. There's like a Git repository for that. But that hasn't happened yet. And yeah, it's just good to keep things up to date. And the community Mattermost channel can be really helpful if you're having problems. Lucas and I both have had some problems with yarn building on the opac recently. But I think we're both good on that. Are you still having trouble, Lucas, or did you get it?
I'm still pulling my KTD with 2411 images because the main image is broken and I can't yarn build. So
Oh.
I'm got a workaround, but I don't know what's wrong with the main image.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing too.
Yeah, no, it's been working for me, but I don't switch branches very often to like 2411 or other things like that. But if I have trouble, I always prune everything. But I don't use Docker for anything else. So it basically deletes all the images and volume. So I'll put the command in and then start fresh. But but it sounds like you were having other problems as well, Lucas. So.
So just the command yarn build doesn't work on right now in main.
Lucas and I have both had trouble with it in main. But yours yarn,
Mine just worked. I don't know why.
yeah, which is interesting. Makes me wonder too, more like, what if you do yarn build opac?
I
think
and
I've
that's
only
with a
noticed it.
dash or anything.
Nope, just yarn build space opac.
Yes, I can share my screen maybe. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you remove that file because it's like, hey, this already exists, but also we shouldn't have to remove it every time. But if you do like RM API
And then it
slash
works.
one, well,
Like this.
yep.
I guess I've never tried yarn build opac specifically. Because yarn weirdly, if I just did yarn build by itself, it did work. It seemed to at least.
Yeah, I was trying to test an opac bug last week when I started having this issue.
Yeah, I don't bother just doing either opac or I think it's dash dash. I'm not sure what it is. I just yarn build it builds the CSS for the both. So I don't it doesn't normally take very long. I'm not having that. It's always the guy, isn't it? I'm not having that command I'm not having that problem. I can run a yarn build fine. Because that's what yarn builds normally run when you start KTD. So it's a bit weird that it's not working for you. What does your git status say?
Interesting. There's some untracked files, but that's mostly because there was a different thing I was working on with Nick that didn't get added to the git ignore. But they're all untracked.
Maybe it's this is the difference between, I guess, the two is when you run yarn build by itself, it's doing API, it's doing this versus this one
Yeah.
has opac at the end.
It's the yarn
This
build
part.
API bundle that is specifically broken. If you run that, you'll get that error
This is the one that's broken.
right away. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you run just yarn build, it doesn't do that. It does.
It does API bundle, but it does not do API bundle
opac. Yep.
Yeah.
Because my very limited understanding of the API bundle is if some changes are made to the API files, then that's when you would run that.
Wait a minute. Now yarn build is giving me the error though too. But a minute ago it didn't.
What does your git status say? Because sometimes it changes the yarn lock, and no, it's not that. So yeah. Well, if I have trouble, I always shut everything down, prune everything, and do fresh git pull and KTD pull. But
So
your
it might
mileage may vary.
we don't need to do the opac thing because it does gulp the CSS for the opac when it does just a regular yarn build.
Yeah, a yarn build without anything else does the opac and the staff interface, CSS. So
I think then just my notes were old enough that it didn't used to. You used to have to do it separately.
yeah, you did, yeah, but you don't now. It'll probably possibly be something where all the bits sit under koha dev box / all the modules or whatever. Something's got screwed up in there maybe. So yeah, shutting down KDD and starting it up again will probably fix it. So it's a bit like watching paint dry when you're starting up KDD, although it's a little bit slower here using Windows. What is it? Windows subsystem for Linux on Windows. It's really quite quick on a Linux desktop, but I don't know what it's like on a Mac. But
It's pretty fast on my Linux desktop. I do find that there's a couple places where it seems like it takes a little longer than it used to in like 4 years ago, but that's just when I was running it on the dev box before I got Docker set up. But
I
yeah,
think it
it's
could be,
definitely still faster than this.
I think it goes a little bit slower if you're like in a Zoom meeting and sharing your screen too, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, I think something happened. I
Same,
didn't shut down.
it looks like the directory is still there. The illegal operation on a directory. So if you rm space dash r, that directory, that API v1 swagger.
Oh, I didn't do
And
the
then
space R.
yeah, because it thinks it's a directory. So the R will do the recursive.
Like that.
Yep. Then if you,
Change.
oh, because it has to be,
In KTD shell,
yeah.
but I didn't put KTD up yet.
Or it's in Koha. So if you do,
Oh, it's in Koha.
yeah. If you just put Koha slash before that, it should work, or that.
Yeah. Okay. Now just doing it twice at the same time.
Yep.
So that was weird. We got the error one time. Well, yarn build worked, then it didn't work. And then it worked again after resetting everything.
Yeah, I think it was because that,
But this one's still gonna not work, right?
yeah, and then you're gonna have to remove the file again before regular yarn builder will work.
So I think I never got that error because I never ran this command ever.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Lucas said it's that adding opac, which I've never done. So
Yeah, I think it's that opac bundle API because the public API routes aren't opac, they're just public with the rest of the API. So I think that's trying to bundle API routes that don't exist because you do the opac thing. And we just don't need to put opac. But my notes from forever ago, starting at like Portland in 2018, I think you had to yarn build opac at that point.
Just don't yarn API bundle opac for now until Tomas gets back and can fix it. He's on vacation right now.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. I think that's it for this month's baby devs. Next month will be trying to pull up calendar. And actually, I'm wondering too if we still want it to be at this time with the half our people leaving for Aspen weekly, or if we want to push it a little earlier. Oh, koha-US meeting calendar. Doesn't exist. Oh, there. Because we could move this meeting half an hour earlier, I think. There's not a different, I think there used to be a different koha-US meeting that was this time that got moved. But we could move it to 10 Pacific instead of 10:30 so that it doesn't overlap anymore with Aspen Weekly, or not as much. Would that work for folks?
Yep, no, it's fine with me.
Sounds fine with me.
Cool. I will message Andrew so they can move it on the koha-US calendar. Cool. Okay, thanks everyone.
Oh, one other thing I guess about the meeting is there's one Koha agenda calendar, and then there's the Koha US calendar. I think the link didn't work for me from one of the calendars today. But maybe that's already fixed.
It's the Koha community calendar that was wrong. Yeah.
Okay, it's been fixed though. It looks like.
Yeah, I updated it for that meeting, but it must just be all the meetings are wrong, probably. So normally what happens, whoever updates the Koha US calendar adds it to, have got access to update the Koha community calendar.
And
It's
Andrew
probably
and Wally were talking about, I think there's been some other trouble with some other meetings also with the koha-US links, and they were
Yeah.
gonna work on sorting that out.
Great. That'd be
They
good.
were talking about it when I joined, so I just caught the tail end of it, but okay. I will let Andrew know. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for letting me learn.
Thanks.